Welcome, welcome. This is the Enlightenment podcast, part of the Authors on Air Global Radio Network. And I'm your host, Laurie Schoenfeld. Thank you for all of those who are joining us live and for those who will join us later on the replay. I am extremely excited to introduce you to our guest this afternoon, author Thomas Kies, who is the author of the new book, Shadow Hill, which is number 4 in the Geneva Chase Crime Reporter Mysteries. There are a lot of layers within this beautiful book that I fell in love with, from the strong female protagonist to all the twists and turns and pulls that Tom takes us in. Welcome, Tom. So excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Lori. I'm just so happy to be here and to be able to chat with you for a little bit.
Likewise, your shirt matches the cover. I was just noticing that, Tom. You're beautiful. You're blue. I don't know if that was planned, but that was magnificent. You match.
No, it really wasn't. But now that you mention it, yeah, it is a pretty good match, isn't it?
It is a good shade of blue. How are you doing right now within your world?
Doing as well as we can be expected. I think I mentioned as we were speaking, I'm actually the president of our county's Chamber of Commerce, and we're trying to help some small businesses some of which are struggling because of this latest surge in COVID. And our own programs, we're trying to figure out how to pivot and do things safely. So that's a big part of what we do. And between you and me, Lori, I don't think I'm going to be writing COVID into any of my books anytime soon.
It just keeps going, and there's more and more layers that just, keep unwinding in every aspect of business and the industry. For sure. I am so grateful for all that you're doing to support the community as well. That's so needed.
Well, thank you. And on a positive note, I am feeling great because Shadow Hill is doing very well. And the other books are selling nicely. I can't complain about that. And I wrapped up my 5th book. It's actually been edited, and it's due to come out in 2022. I don't have the exact date yet, but it's kind of nice to have that done, and I don't have to worry about it.
Does it feel like the breathing room? I just released a book, and now it's like this new fresh energy of like, I get to create something different. What shall that be? Do you feel that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's with our business, as you know, Lori, it's kind of hurry up and wait. You have deadlines that you're working on, and then you wait until the book is released, and the publisher will say, well, maybe it's time you should start working on another book. We'll take a look at it down the road. So, yeah, right at the moment, I'm taking a deep breath, and I'm actually reading mysteries and enjoying them very much.
Yes. What is that? So is this a book number 5 tied to the Geneva series, or did we end that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, during the lockdown, my agent called me and she said, what are you working on? And I said, well, I'm not sure the publisher is going to want another Geneva Chase novel. So I thought I'd start working on a new series. And I was explaining to her what it was, and she listened very politely because she is a very polite lady. And she said, well, Tom, let's put a pin in that. And I want you to write another Geneva Chase book. So I did.
Okay. And we're off. I'm really excited because I'm not going to give any spoilers to this book, but I fell in love with Geneva as she is a very strong female protagonist. And I also love that she's a reporter, which I enjoyed so much when somebody mentioned she's a reporter. She would rephrase that she's a research analyst. I thought that was so humorous and such a fun touch that you added there. Can you share with our listeners what Shadow Hill is about?
Sure. It starts out an oil executive, a retired oil executive, and his wife were found shot to death, and the police have determined that it was a murder-suicide. Their son is absolutely convinced that no, it's not a suicide, it was a double homicide. And they hire a research company called Lodestar Analytics to look into it. And Geneva is a freelance reporter, and she'll often freelance for Lodestar Analytics as a research analyst, which makes her feel a little bit like a sexy scientist. So she's off and running, and we talk about a lot of different things in the book. We talk about climate change, and we talk about fossil fuels, and we even talk about school shootings. So we cover a fair amount of ground in Shadow Hill, and I loved writing this book. There's a lot of things in there that are just near and dear to my heart. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, Lori.
Mm-hmm. We were talking a little bit before the show of one of the things that I appreciated so much is I loved the plot line and I loved Geneva, her whole character, but I also loved how you did bring in those concepts and that we are talking about the themes such as school shootings, LGBT community, environmental issues, things that really need to be shared and talked about during this time. So thank you so much for bringing those into your story as well. Did you think when you first started Random Road that it was going to be now a series of 5, or was it first going to be book 1 and it kind of went from there?
Yeah, no, I wasn't. I had no plans on doing anything beyond Random Road with Geneva Chase. I'm going to be honest with you. The concept of writing from Geneva's point of view was an experiment. And I was writing from her point of view with one chapter, and the next chapter would be the male protagonist, which was Kevin Bell. And I got about 10 chapters into it and discovered that while Kevin Bell is a really nice guy, Geneva Chase is a snarky smartass. And say a lot of things I don't get to say in real life. So it was all about her. And at the end of Random Road, it's tied up nicely. And I wasn't planning on doing anything more with her. But the publisher liked the character so much that they ordered 2 more books, and then ordered Shadow Hill, and then they've ordered 1 more book beyond that. So I know more about women's shoes now than any other man alive, I think.
That was because you wrote the female protagonist so well. And I kept thinking as I was reading, try not to overthink it because I wanted to enjoy the character, but I'm like, oh my gosh, Tom is really hitting like the relatability of what a woman, like there was even a scene where the doorbell rings and I loved it where she's like has no makeup on, she's in her robe, and you just set up this scene so nicely of like not wanting to go and answer the door and kind of what you were looking like and why she didn't want to answer the door, which is so relatable to women. We've all been through that experience or been to the grocery store and hope that no one recognizes, but usually that's exactly when they recognize us, is when like we're not all put together. Where did you draw inspiration from Geneva? Because she is so strong and so relatable and very fresh to a woman perspective.
First of all, I just want to let you know that everybody I work with in the publishing business is female. My publicist, agent, my publisher, my editors. I don't work with a single man in the entire process. So they keep me pretty straight as far as people should be saying and doing. And Geneva is actually based on a real character I worked with for 18 years in Connecticut on a newspaper. That was my original career in newspapers and magazines. And she was tall. She was very, very attractive. She was kind of a hot mess most of the time. But boy, was she smart, and she didn't take any guff from anybody. And I still stay in touch with her and love her deeply. And she knows Geneva is patterned after her. So.
Did she know that before you wrote the novel or after when she got her hands on it?
Actually, it was after. I put her in the acknowledgments of Random Road, and without giving away too much, Geneva drinks too much. And actually in Shadow Hill, she stops drinking. But for the first 3 books, she drinks way too much. And this lady I patterned this after had just started her own company, and she was concerned that if they Googled Geneva Chase, her name would pop up, and the consumption of alcohol. And she didn't want to be associated with that. So she asked if I would take her out of the book. And I said, sure, be happy to do it. Well, Random Road did so well, and she liked the book so much that she called me and she said, with the second book, make sure you put me in there, will you, please? So she's in the acknowledgments of the second book.
So tying to you and the lovely lady that you looked at that's similar to Geneva, you also raised your own daughter as well. So did you bring some of those pieces of what you've seen within your daughter of different things and feelings, experiences that maybe she's reacted to or gone through to place that a little bit within some of your characters?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Caroline is based on my daughter. I was a single dad and finished raising her. And she was 13 when we started, and now I won't say how old she is because she's married and she's got twin toddlers. So I'm a grandpa. And but I do recall what it was like when my daughter Jessica first started dating, and how I felt about her being around boys, and when she wanted to learn how to drive. And it's just, it's when I started going great. So yeah, and the cool thing is the toddlers are twins, and they're a boy and a girl. And my son-in-law called me in the middle of the night when they were born, and he said everybody's fine, but because they were born prematurely, they were in the NICU. And I said, well, what did you name them? And he told me that the little boy was named Thomas, and the little girl was named Caroline. I cried. I absolutely cried. So,
Oh, yeah. Congrats, Grandpa. That's it's a new milestone in your life, for sure. So, Tom, this has so many twists and turns, and I've noticed on some of the things on your posts that you have been whitewater rafting and you write thrillers. So I am intrigued. Do you enjoy the thrill of where life can take you in both your extracurricular and also in your book characters?
Yeah, I love it. I've done some really dumb things, and probably the dumbest was I ran a festival in Connecticut called the Norwalk Oyster Festival, and it attracts like 200,000 people. And one of the things that we had in it was a skydiving show. And one night I'd had a couple of glasses of wine, and I stopped in a committee meeting, and the head of the skydiving show says, why don't you join us? Well, I thought he was kidding. And he sent me an email with a 12-page waiver. And I said, he's not kidding. So as a publicity stunt, I jumped out of an airplane at 13,000 feet, strapped to a guy who's like 7 feet tall and knew what he was doing, and he got me down safely. And that's I don't need to do that a second time.
That was a one and done deal for you.
Yeah, really was.
So what were some of the internal thoughts that you were having in that moment as realizing that this was really happening and you were about ready to just leap out of a plane?
Yeah, what I realized, because there was a fair amount of publicity about it. Here's a guy working for a newspaper, and he's also running this nonprofit organization, raising money for it was an environmental organization, and he's going to jump out of an airplane. Well, the TV was covering it, my newspaper was covering it, and there was about 12,000 people out on the field that day. I realized I was more afraid of being humiliated and not doing it rather than dying. So once you're up in the airplane, there's really no plan B. When you're rocking on the edge of that plane, and they actually videoed it coming down, you just enjoy it. There's nothing you can do. You can't go back, and you can't stop it, and you just enjoy it. And honest to God, it was just such a blast. It really was. So, and the whitewater rafting, I just did this past weekend. Once again, it was such a blast, and we're talking about doing another river that's even harder. So we'll see.
So did the one that you went to this past week, has this been your first time, or have you done this multiple times?
No, this was on my bucket list. And
yes.
Yeah, a bunch of neighbors said they were going. Would I like to join them? And I said, yeah, sure. Put me in. I'm with you.
Try something once and you're going in for the adventure. I absolutely love that. You talk about within your book environmental issues, and I know that that is near and dear to your heart. Can you share a little bit about your passion within, why you wanted to bring that into your story, and what you're also doing right now in that arena as well?
Sure. A couple of things. One, climate change concerns me a lot because I'm worried what we're going to leave the world behind for my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. That's a real concern. But also part of my job as a Chamber of Commerce president here on the coast is to try to keep the coast clean because tourism is a huge deal. And in addition to being the president of the Carteret County Chamber of Commerce, I'm also the president of an organization called the Business Alliance Protecting the Atlantic Coast. And we represent 43,000 businesses from Maine to Florida and 500,000 commercial fishing families. And I've been to Washington 3 times, and I've testified in front of a House subcommittee to keep the Atlantic Ocean from having anybody drilling oil. And because I don't think that's going to happen at this time. There's actually a number of bills moving through the House that looks like it'll permanently ban offshore oil. So fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm. So when you put it into Shadow Hill, did you put that in because that was something that you're passionate specifically to, and you wanted that to come within the book to kind of raise that awareness a little bit and to be woven through the story?
I did. I really did. This was going to be my climate change book. I deal with a number of other items in some of the past books, but this was my. This one was near and dear to my heart. I loved working on Shadow Hill, and I'm glad that it's selling well and people seem to be reacting to it well. I haven't heard a single word that somebody disliked it, even from a certain political stance. I had one of those people come to my house and tell me how much he enjoyed the book. So hopefully it's making a difference.
So I'm going to just put this up for those that can see and view, and for those who are listening. I'm holding up the Shadow Hill book. This is one of the books that I have read within the past 6 months that I would absolutely recommend, as it is an amazing mystery and adventure with great plot lines, very rich characters, but themes that are really, really important. And it opens up a lot of awareness within different things that we're going through during this time, as well as issues before this time that are just important to talk about. So I'll put the links down below to reach Tom and where you can find Shadow Hill, as well as the rest of the books in his amazing series too. So it's an easy access for those who are interested in finding Shadow Hill. Going to the next question, Tom, with Geneva, what are 3 words that you would say describe her the most?
Driven, exceedingly bright, and a snarky smartass. She just sometimes she can't help herself. She'll look at something and something will pop up in her head, and sometimes she doesn't have a filter. She just says it. So she's fun to write.
The internal bantering that you put in with her too, I found myself laughing multiple times right along with the dialogue, because she is very, very snarky and very fun. Yeah. Okay. We're going to go to the inner child question segment. Are you ready, Tom?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. If you could pick any detective or reporter to be working right alongside Geneva, who would you pick and why?
I've got a thing about there's new character Michael Connelly does. Her name is Renee Ballard, and she's kind of a protege of Hieronymus Bosch, Harry Bosch, that I think Michael Connelly does a fabulous job with. And if anybody would work well with Geneva, I think it would be Renee Ballard.
Okay, Renee Ballard and Geneva Chase mashup. This needs to happen. That would be number 6 then, right, Tom? In the series?
Yeah, let me get Michael on the phone and we'll collaborate.
How do you think about this? Okay, second question. All right. What is the first mystery that you solved as a kid?
Oh.
Do you remember?
I don't remember solving any mystery. I will tell you that my sister and I grew up in a very rural area in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes. And we grew up in a small lake that wasn't part of the Finger Lakes. And during the winter and fall and spring, people really weren't there. It was just my grandparents and the two of us. And we would be like explorers, and we would make up stories. And actually, I would make up the stories, and my little sister would just come along. She was such a trooper. She, we'd be explorers, and people had never seen this part of New York State before. And we had these grand adventures. I'm not sure I was a mystery writer back then. I was more of a thriller maker-upper. So, and God bless my little sister. She put up with so much for me.
So what were some of the adventures that you went on? I can see it visually, but can you walk us through, for those who are listening, what would an adventure for Tom and your sister look like?
We would be walking through the forest, and I would be convinced that there had not been a human being ever to set foot in the same location that we were in. And we were seeing all of this for the very first time. We were breaking trails, and we were discovering new things and looking for animals. And, it was just this wonderful world of imagination that we were living through. And there were no adults around while we were doing this. And, these days, of course, you'd wonder, where the hell are those kids? And why aren't they here? But we were outside and just having the best time. God love my grandparents. They were just the best. And I will tell you just this one little secret. They let me have access to their typewriter. And I would type out, I was typing kind of this mysteries as we were going along. And anytime I would type out the word blood in my story, there, in a typewriter ribbon, you've got the black part of the ribbon and the red part of the ribbon. And I would switch it so blood was in red. And I thought, this is so damn clever. This thing's going to get published. So I started writing at a very early age, but I didn't get published until I was in my 60s. So look at that.
My inner child's high-fiving your inner child with the red font on blood. Yes, that was brilliant. Yes. All right. Third question. What is the weirdest food combo that you've liked and tried, or you've just tried?
I will tell you that I do all the cooking in our house. It's probably the only reason Cindy actually married me. Because she hates to cook. The weirdest combo, I have taken some cooking classes, and one of them was from a chef who used to be the personal chef for the King of Jordan. So he's a specialist in Mediterranean foods. And he taught me to make something called a gladiator mushroom. That is this just remarkable set of different flavors with this massive mushroom. And I'm not much on eating mushrooms of any size, but this is just absolutely delicious. So I think that mashing up all those flavors together was probably the most remarkable thing. I still make it on occasion, and my wife, bless her heart, she eats pretty much anything I make and put in front of her because she doesn't want to have to cook it herself.
High five your wife. And it reminded me, because I resonate with that a lot, but also in your book with Geneva, like her thought of, I could cook, but I don't really like it. So I'm seeing a trend here.
Yeah, it's funny. In the second book, I'll tell you a story. I wrote 100 pages of the second book, which is Darkness Lane. And in Darkness Lane, she had quit drinking. And the first couple of chapters, she's making a meatloaf and she's making a pot of chili. And I sent it off to my editor, and Annette, who's just a sweetie, but she doesn't pull any punches. She says, Tom, I see where you're laying down some of the puzzle pieces in this mystery, but God, Geneva's so damn dull. It is like nothing happens. So I panicked. I go, oh my God, I'm never going to get a second book published. So I rewrote those 100 pages in like 2 weeks. And I sent it back to Annette, and she goes, yeah, this is better. She's still a hot mess, and it's dark. So keep going. But in it, Geneva doesn't cook. She doesn't like to cook. She'll do takeout if she's got the wherewithal to do it.
Well, God bless the husbands that cook, because I have a husband that makes sure that we are well fed, and he's very good at cooking too. So good job, Tom. It helps for sure. What, in your experience with writing and publishing, do you feel like was one of your greatest failures and something that you learned from?
Oh, yeah. I'll be right up front with you, Lori. Random Road was my 5th attempt at a novel. My first was, it was called Crossbones. It was a historic pirate novel, which was just god awful. I will never write a historical novel again. And the second was something called Pieces of Jake that was actually picked up by an agent in New York, but he couldn't find a publisher for it. And he dropped me. And I was so upset that I didn't write another word for 2 years. Mm. And then I tried writing a horror novel called Graveyard Bay that didn't find a buyer, but I loved the title so much that it's the title of my 3rd book. And then I wrote a thriller called Night Chains that was so bad my own wife wouldn't read it. So, they're all failures, but you learn from it. And what I tell my students when I teach creative writing at the local college, I tell them, write every day. Don't not write something. Just keep writing. And I finally caught a break with Random Road and the characters. I love those characters so much that I was going to get it published one way or another. If I couldn't find a legitimate publisher, I'd probably do it myself. But thank God I didn't have to do it myself. I got a great agent and great publishing houses, and the editors have been fabulous. So I'm like one of the luckiest guys in the world.
It helps to have a fantastic team that's supporting you on your journey, for sure. I love that you mentioned how many beautiful books that you attempted before you finally felt like something kind of stuck. Did you see, because just when you were talking, I loved how excited you got about your whole Random Road series. Was there a different energy that you felt when you wrote that book versus the other books that you'd written previously?
Yeah, I felt connected to Random Road. I felt there was an investment from me in that book. Those characters I saw. I lived with those characters. I could hear the dialogue in my head. There are a couple of plot twists in Random Road I did not see coming. That book had a life of its own. And indeed, as I'm writing now, I'll get so invested in it that it's like they're little characters on my desk, and they have little lives of their own. It's almost schizophrenic. But it's part of the creative process that I enjoy the most. When I hear the dialogue as I'm driving, I'm going, yeah, these two people are talking. And I I teach at the school. I tell them, all those characters are pieces of you. The good guys, the bad guys, the minor characters, the major characters. That's all part of you. So there's a certain craziness to being a fiction writer, I think.
All those unspoken layers that we all hold that most don't get to see escape on the paper. What is one of your greatest milestones to date?
Certainly my kids have done very well with their lives. That's first and foremost. I've got a wonderful wife. I'm not in newspapers or magazines anymore, which is by choice. And I've got a great gig here on the coast. But I will tell you, when I signed a contract with my agent and my agent got a contract with Poison Pen Press, I just felt elated because it was a childhood dream of mine to be a novelist and a mystery writer. And that dream came true. And it continues to come through. It's just the thrill never goes away. So, whitewater rafting is great, but you got to go home. This lasts forever.
Mm-hmm. I'm just envisioning the Tom at the typewriter writing the red, and just that moment of like, we're here, we've arrived.
Yeah, it's like when you open up a box of the publisher sends you some books, complimentary that you can give to your friends and family and whatever. And when you open that up, it's just, oh God, look at my books. We did this. We wrote this. And sometimes I'll go back and take a look at the content on some of the books that have come out. I go, man, that wasn't bad. That really was pretty good. So you wonder, did I really write that? And yeah, you did.
That's always a good sign when you can go back and read your work and you still get excited going back and reading it again. It has been such an honor to have you here today. I've so enjoyed this conversation. Before we end today, can you give our listeners some advice on what living a joyful and creative life means to you?
Yeah, I actually write a blog for Type M for Murder once every 2 weeks. And I did one on creativity probably about a month and a half ago. And in it, I write about how as young children have this natural imagination and creativity. And as we grow older, sometimes that's kind of beaten out of us where, we've got to pass tests and we got to make money and we got to raise a family. My suggestion is be creative in some way, shape, or fashion, because that makes you happy. That really makes you happy when you're creating something, whether it's with your hands out of wood or you're painting something or you're writing something. I am happiest when I'm creating and creating my own world. What could be better than that?
Thank you so much for that, Tom. And where can we find you if there are listeners that would like to know about your book or have any questions about anything we talked about today?
If you go to my website, which is www.thomaskiesauthor.com, there's a little place where you could say, I'd like to talk to Tom. And that comes immediately to my Gmail account. And I answer all emails and anybody who comments. I love talking to people who love to read and love mysteries. And so please do.
Perfect. We will add that in the comments below as well. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And remember, as you go about the rest of your week, that you are on your own hero's journey and you get to create the life that you would like to live. What kind of piece are you going to create today? Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you right here next Monday at 1:00 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thanks, Laurie.